The morning air at Stone Creek Ranch was crisp, the golden sunlight stretching over the open fields as Thomas Stone guided his horses back to the stable. The smell of fresh hay and earth filled his lungs. Life on the ranch was simple, predictable, and above all, peaceful. Then came the sirens. The tranquility shattered as flashing red and blue lights tore through the landscape. Police vehicles roared onto the property, their tires kicking up clouds of dust. Before Thomas could react, officers in tactical gear swarmed the area, weapons drawn. "Hands up," one of them shouted. Confused, Thomas raised his hands, his heart hammering. His wife and 2 children stood frozen on the porch, eyes wide with fear. Then, from inside the house, Nathan Stone stepped out. The twin brother Thomas hadn't seen in years. His hair was longer, his beard unkempt, but his face was unmistakable. A single shot rang out. Nathan collapsed. Blood spread beneath him, dark against the dry dirt. Screams filled the air. Thomas rushed to his brother's side, cradling him as life drained from his body. The officers hesitated, their radios crackling with panicked voices. A mistake. Hundreds of miles away, Marcus Stone, a retired Navy SEAL commander, received the call. His grip tightened around his phone as his mother's broken voice relayed the news. His brother, wrongfully targeted, shot in cold blood. Marcus had spent his life in war zones, but this fight was personal. His mission was clear. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. This is a story of justice, betrayal, and relentless pursuit of the truth. Subscribe now and witness the battle unfold. The early morning sun stretched across the vast golden fields of Stone Creek Ranch, its warmth barely touching the crisp air. Thomas Stone wiped his brow, admiring the land he had spent years nurturing. The rhythmic sounds of cattle lowing and the distant clatter of his children playing near the fence filled the atmosphere with a peaceful melody. It was a morning like any other. Then came the sirens. At first they were faint, distant enough to be mistaken for something beyond the hills, but within seconds, the unmistakable roar of multiple police vehicles ripped through the countryside. Dust clouds spiraled into the sky as a convoy of black SUVs and squad cars tore down the dirt road leading straight to the ranch. Thomas's stomach twisted. He turned toward the house, his boots kicking up gravel as he rushed forward. His wife, Julia, stood on the porch, shielding their 2 young children behind her. The vehicles came to a screeching halt. The doors flew open. Armed police! Hands in the air. Officers poured out, their rifles raised. A dozen red laser sights flickered across the yard, painting the wooden fence, the ground, and, most terrifyingly, Thomas's chest. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, raising his hands. One of the officers, a hardened man with a clenched jaw, took a step forward. "Captain Raymond Holt. We have a warrant." "We know who you are." The word sent a chill through Thomas. Who they thought he was. Movement from inside the house caught everyone's attention. The front door creaked open. Nathan Stone stepped out. His hair was longer, his face rougher, but the resemblance was unmistakable. He squinted against the daylight, barely processing what was happening before. A single shot rang out. Nathan staggered. A dark stain spread across his shirt. He gasped, eyes wide, as his legs gave out beneath him. A scream tore through the air. "Nathan!" Thomas lunged forward, catching his brother as he crumpled to the ground. Nathan's breaths were ragged, his blood soaking into the dirt. Julia's sobs filled the silence. "Hold on. Stay with me, damn it!" Thomas's voice cracked as he pressed his hands against the wound. The officers hesitated. Their radios crackled with urgent chatter. A mistake. One of them had fired without confirming their target. "We need a medic!" an officer yelled, but it was already too late. Captain Holt cursed under his breath, stepping forward, but Thomas glared at him with pure hatred. "Get off my land, now!" No one moved. Then a single voice broke the stunned silence. "Thomas?" It was Julia, standing at the porch steps, her phone trembling in her hands. "Marcus is on the line." Miles away, Marcus Stone gripped his phone so tightly, his knuckles turned white. His mother's frantic voice had barely finished explaining before Julia's sobs confirmed everything. His brother lay dying. His family was terrorized, and someone would pay for this. Marcus's voice was cold, steady. "I'm coming." And when he did, there would be hell to pay. Marcus Stone stepped off the bus into the dry heat of Crescent Ridge, the small town bordering his family's ranch. His boots hit the pavement with purpose, his expression unreadable beneath the brim of his baseball cap. He had left war behind years ago, But as he took in the quiet streets, the tension in his muscles told him otherwise. This was enemy territory now. He wasted no time. The moment he arrived at the ranch, his mother wrapped him in a desperate hug. Her fingers clutched his shirt as she sobbed against his chest. "They shot him, Marcus. They shot Nathan like he was some kind of animal." Marcus held her tighter, his jaw clenched. His brother was still alive, barely, but unconscious in a hospital bed miles away. No arrests, no apologies, just silence from the ones responsible. That was about to change. The Crescent Ridge Sheriff's Department sat on the edge of town, an unassuming brick building with tinted windows. Marcus walked in, his presence commanding attention. Every deputy in sight stiffened, as if sensing the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. "I need to see Captain Holt," he said. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. The receptionist hesitated, but before she could respond, a door swung open at the end of the hallway. Captain Raymond Holt. The man strolled out, his uniform crisp, his posture rigid with authority. He was older, battle-hardened, and carried himself with the arrogance of someone who had never been held accountable. Marcus didn't wait for an invitation. "You shot the wrong man," he said, his voice razor-sharp. Holt exhaled through his nose, barely flinching. "We had reason to believe your brother was a wanted fugitive." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes locked onto Holt's. "You didn't verify, you didn't hesitate. You fired first." A tense silence stretched between them. Holt's officers watched uneasily from their desks, as if sensing the fragile thread between words and violence. Holt finally spoke. "There's an ongoing investigation. If you have a complaint, take it up with Internal Affairs." Marcus let out a humorless chuckle. "We both know that won't happen." Holt's jaw tightened. "You're a civilian now, Stone. You don't have jurisdiction here." Marcus leaned in just enough for Holt to hear his next words clearly. "That's where you're wrong. This isn't about jurisdiction. It's about justice." The two men locked eyes, predator against predator. Then, from the side, a voice interrupted. "Marcus?" He turned. At the entrance of the station stood Devin Carter, a former Marine turned local mechanic. "You're not the only one who wants answers," Devin said. Marcus glanced around, noticing for the first time the eyes of several townspeople, silent observers who had clearly lost trust in their own law enforcement. He wasn't alone in this fight, and Holt knew it. Without another word, Marcus turned on his heel and walked out. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. The neon Crescent Ridge General Hospital sign buzzed faintly in the night as Marcus pushed through the double doors. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled his lungs, but he barely noticed. His focus was on the hallway ahead, where his brother lay fighting for his life. Thomas sat by Nathan's bedside, his face lined with exhaustion. Machines beeped in a slow, steady rhythm, keeping Nathan tethered to life. Marcus exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the doorway. Seeing his twin like this, pale, motionless, broken, ignited a fire in his chest. "Doctor says it's a miracle he's alive," Thomas muttered, not taking his eyes off Nathan. "But they won't say if he'll ever wake up." Marcus stepped forward, resting a hand on his brother's shoulder. "He will," Marcus said, voice low. "And when he does, I want him to see that justice has been served." Thomas nodded, but doubt flickered in his tired eyes. "Justice?" he scoffed. "This town doesn't do justice, Marcus. It buries the truth." Marcus's jaw tightened. Not this time. The rusty nail bar was the kind of place where secrets clung to the walls like cigarette smoke. Marcus had barely stepped inside before he felt the stares. Locals knew him. More importantly, they knew why he was here. At the counter sat Devin Carter, the former Marine who had spoken up at the station. He gestured to an open seat. "You're making enemies fast," Devin murmured, as Marcus slid onto the stool. "Good," Marcus replied. "Means I'm getting close to something." Devin took a slow sip of his beer before speaking. "The word is Holt's been running off-the-books operations for years. Drug seizures that never make it to the evidence locker. Suspects that disappear before trial." Marcus listened carefully, his mind piecing things together. "So they thought Nathan was a threat?" Devin shrugged. "Maybe, but here's the kicker. There's no record of any fugitive matching his description." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "They shot him for nothing." Devin nodded, "or for something they don't want getting out." A chill ran through Marcus. This wasn't just about a mistaken identity. This was a cover-up. Before he could respond, the bar door swung open. Two men stepped in, deputies. They spotted Marcus instantly. "Stone," one of them called out, their tone unfriendly. "Captain Holt wants to talk." Devin tensed beside him. Marcus glanced around. The bar had gone quiet, the weight of watchful eyes pressing against his back. Marcus stood, meeting the deputies with an unreadable stare. "Then he can come find me himself." The taller deputy smirked. "That's not how this works." Marcus took a step closer, his voice calm but dangerous. "Then let me tell you how it does. You tell Holt that I know. I know Nathan wasn't a fugitive. I know this town is rotten, and I know he's trying to hide something." The smirk faded. "And if he wants me to stop," Marcus continued, his voice dropping lower, "he'll have to kill me too." A tense silence filled the bar. The deputies exchanged a glance before turning and walking out. Devin let out a low whistle. "You sure know how to stir the pot." Marcus sat back down. This pot needed stirring. But as he glanced toward the window, something caught his eye, a figure in the shadows, watching. And in that moment, Marcus knew. They weren't just warning him anymore. They were hunting him. The night air was thick with tension as Marcus stepped out of the rusty nail bar. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing against him, his instincts sharpening like a blade honed by years in combat. Whoever had been watching him from the shadows was gone now, but Marcus knew better than to think they had left. They were waiting. Devin Carter stepped out behind him, his footsteps light against the gravel. "You felt that too, huh?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the empty parking lot, the dim glow of streetlights casting long distorted shadows. His gut told him he was running out of time. "They're testing me," Marcus murmured. "Seeing if I'll back down." Devin smirked. They picked the wrong guy for that. Before Marcus could reply, the sudden roar of an engine shattered the silence. A black SUV sped toward them, tires screeching as it skidded into the lot. Marcus barely had time to move before the first gunshot rang out. He dove behind a parked truck as bullets ripped through the air, shattering glass and punching holes into metal. Devin hit the ground beside him, cursing under his breath. "Damn, they're not wasting time." Marcus unholstered his Glock, leveling his breathing as he peeked out. Two masked men were firing from the SUV's windows, their rifles trained on him. "Cover me," Marcus said. Devin nodded, pulling his own pistol. On Marcus's signal, he fired 2 rapid shots, forcing the gunman to duck. That was all the opening Marcus needed. He surged forward. 1. A precise shot to the driver's shoulder sent the SUV swerving. 2. The second gunman barely had time to react before Marcus's next bullet hit center mass. He collapsed against the seat, his rifle slipping from his grasp. The SUV veered wildly before crashing into a lamppost. Silence. Marcus and Devin advanced cautiously, weapons drawn. The driver groaned, clutching his bleeding shoulder. The second man wasn't as lucky, motionless, slumped over the dashboard. Marcus yanked the driver from the wreckage, slamming him against the hood. "Who sent you?" The man coughed, his face contorted in pain. You don't know what you're up against." Marcus pressed harder. "Try me." The man sneered. "You think Holt's the worst of it? You're in way over your head, Stone." Devin scoffed. "Yeah? Well, I'd say you're a little over your head too." But Marcus didn't let up. He could see it in the man's eyes. Fear, not of them, but of something bigger. Before he could press further, the unmistakable sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Marcus swore under his breath. "We need to go." He grabbed Devin's arm, dragging him away before law enforcement arrived. They disappeared into the night, the sound of sirens fading behind them. Back at the ranch, Marcus paced the living room. Thomas sat nearby, his face drawn with worry. "This isn't just about Nathan anymore," Marcus said. "There's something bigger happening here." Thomas exhaled. "And what are you planning to do?" Marcus met his brother's gaze, his expression hard and unrelenting. "I'm going to find out." Devin leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Then you're gonna need help." Marcus nodded, his decision made. This wasn't just about revenge. This was war. Marcus leaned against the barn wall, his mind racing. The attempted ambush confirmed what he already suspected. He wasn't just exposing police corruption, he was uncovering something much bigger. Whoever was pulling the strings wasn't afraid to kill. A low whistle interrupted his thoughts. "You look like a man who just survived an execution," Devin Carter said, stepping forward with 2 steaming cups of coffee. Marcus took one, nodding in thanks. "I need more than coffee, I need answers." Devin smirked. "Then you'll want to meet someone." They drove into town, taking back roads to avoid unnecessary attention. Devin parked outside a dimly lit diner, its neon sign flickering against the night sky. Inside, a lone woman sat at the corner booth, her back straight, her fingers absently tapping against her coffee mug. Elena Ruiz, investigative journalist, known for exposing small-town corruption. Marcus slid into the booth across from her. "I know who you are," Elena said, her voice steady. "And I know why you're here," Marcus replied. "I need information." She studied him for a moment, then placed a thin manila folder on the table. "Captain Holt isn't your biggest problem." Marcus opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, financial records, and classified reports. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "The real reason your brother got shot," Elena said. Marcus scanned the documents, names, dates, money transfers, and then one name that made his blood run cold. Sheriff Lucas Grayson, Holt's boss. The real power in Crescent Ridge. Marcus clenched his jaw. "So Holt takes orders from him?" Elena nodded. "Holt is just the enforcer. Grayson is the one running the whole operation. Drug trafficking, money laundering, cover-ups. Your brother was in the wrong place at the wrong time." Marcus exhaled sharply. Nathan wasn't just a mistaken identity. He was a liability. Devin whistled. "Damn. And I thought Holt was bad." Elena leaned in. "Listen to me. If you go after Grayson, you'll be up against more than just corrupt cops. This goes deeper." Marcus met her gaze. "I don't care how deep it goes. I'm bringing them down." Elena studied him for a moment, then smirked. "You sound just like me." She extended a hand. An alliance was formed. Marcus shook her hand firmly. No turning back now. The night air was thick with tension as Marcus, Devin, and Elena sat in the dimly lit barn at Stone Creek Ranch. The documents Elena had brought lay spread across the old wooden table, revealing a tangled web of corruption far worse than any of them had anticipated. Captain Holt was just a soldier in a larger war. Sheriff Lucas Grayson was the real kingpin, orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. Drug running, illegal seizures, and even sanctioned hits on those who got too close to the truth. And Nathan, collateral damage. Marcus clenched his fists. Grayson ordered the hit. Holt just pulled the trigger. Devin exhaled sharply. "So what's the play here? We don't have enough to take this to the feds yet." Elena tapped a finger against a grainy surveillance photo. "Then we get more." The image showed a secret meeting behind an abandoned warehouse, a group of officers exchanging envelopes with men in dark suits. "That's our next move," Marcus said. But before they could plan further, the sound of tires crunching gravel echoed through the night. Marcus grabbed his gun, signaling the others to stay back as he moved toward the door. A familiar voice called out, "Marcus, it's me." Marcus frowned. "Thomas?" His brother stepped into the light, his face tense, his hands raised slightly. But something was off. His stance, his expression. There was hesitation. Guilt. Marcus kept his gun lowered but ready. "What's going on?" Thomas exhaled, glancing back toward the road. "I need to talk to you, alone." Marcus stepped outside with him. The wind was cold against his skin. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. Thomas hesitated, then finally said it. "I told them where you were." Marcus stiffened. "What?" Thomas's voice cracked. "They threatened Julia and the kids. Told me if I didn't give up your location, they'd come after them next." Marcus's pulse pounded. His own brother had betrayed him. Before he could respond, headlights appeared in the distance. Thomas's face was pale. "I didn't know they'd come this fast." Marcus grabbed his brother by the collar. "You put us all in danger." The black SUVs sped toward the ranch, their engines roaring. Marcus turned back toward the barn, shouting, "We've got company." Devin and Elena sprang into action, weapons drawn. "Damn it, Marcus," Devin muttered, taking cover. "Your brother just signed our death warrants." Marcus shoved Thomas toward the barn. "Get inside, now." The SUVs skidded to a stop, and armed men poured out, not just cops, mercenaries. Marcus realized the truth in an instant. This wasn't an arrest, it was an execution. Sheriff Grayson wasn't taking any chances. Marcus raised his gun. No more betrayals, no more hesitation. It was time for war. The first gunshot shattered the night. Marcus shoved Thomas through the barn doors just as bullets ripped through the wooden walls, splintering beams and sending dust flying. Devin and Elena took cover behind stacks of hay bales, returning fire with sharp, calculated shots. Outside, the SUV's headlights illuminated at least a dozen armed men. a mix of corrupt officers and mercenaries working under Sheriff Grayson. This wasn't an arrest. It was an ambush. Marcus pressed his back against a post, gripping his Glock. "We can't hold this position forever. We need a way out." Devin fired a shot, hitting one of the men in the leg. "Then we better think fast." Eleanor reloaded. "The barn's a death trap. We have to move." Marcus glanced at Thomas, still shaken. His own brother had betrayed them, but he wasn't a fighter. "You wanted to fix your mistake?" Marcus said, voice cold. "Then get my family out of here." Thomas's eyes widened. "Marcus, Go." Thomas nodded quickly, crawling toward the back exit. Marcus turned back to the war outside. They needed a plan. Fast. Marcus stole a glance out the barn doors, assessing their enemies. The mercenaries were organized, covering all exits. A direct firefight would get them killed. Then he saw it. The old cattle pen near the tree line, rusted but still standing. If they could draw the attackers toward it, they could flip the situation. Marcus turned to Devin and Elena. "We're leading them into the pen." Devin frowned. "And then what?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "We trap them." Elena smirked. "I like the way you think." The next 60 seconds were chaos. Marcus fired twice, dropping one of the gunmen. The rest took cover, shouting orders. "Move! Now!" Marcus barked. Devin and Elena sprinted for the cattle pen, laying down covering fire. Marcus followed, forcing the mercenaries to pursue them. Just as planned. The moment the enemy was inside the pen's perimeter, Marcus made his move. A well-placed shot struck the weak hinge of the old metal gate, sending it crashing shut. The mercenaries were trapped inside. Confused shouts erupted as they realized too late. Marcus had boxed them in. Devin grinned. Damn, that actually worked. Marcus wasn't finished. He tossed a flare into the dry hay surrounding the pen. Fire erupted. Panic spread among the trapped mercenaries as flames licked at their surroundings. They scrambled, disoriented. Marcus turned to Devin and Elena. "Let's go." They vanished into the trees, leaving behind the chaos. Back at the ranch, Marcus found Thomas waiting near a truck. Julia and the kids already inside. "You're leaving," Marcus said. Not a question, a command. Thomas swallowed hard. "Where will you go?" Marcus tightened his grip on his gun. "To finish this." Eleanor nodded. "Sheriff Grayson just made his biggest mistake." Devin smirked. "Yeah, he left you alive." Marcus looked toward the horizon, where Crescent Ridge shimmered under the moonlight. Tomorrow he would bring the war to them. And he wouldn't stop until it was over. Dawn broke over Crescent Ridge, but for Marcus Stone, the town had never felt darker. He stood at the edge of an abandoned industrial site on the outskirts, Grayson's stronghold. The sheriff had operated in the shadows for years, but now Marcus was dragging him into the light. Devin crouched beside him, checking his rifle. "This is a suicide mission," Marcus smirked. "Then why are you here?" Devin chuckled. "Because I hate corrupt bastards." Eleanor joined them, a small USB drive in her palm. "I found everything. Financial records, off-the-books shipments, even a few bodies they tried to disappear. If we get this to the right people, Grayson is finished." Marcus nodded. "Then we make sure it gets out." Devin scanned the perimeter. "Security's heavy. Holt's men are guarding every entrance." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then we go through them." The assault began with fire and thunder. Devin fired the first shot, taking out a sentry on the catwalk. Eleanor moved fast, ducking behind rusted containers while Marcus advanced, his pistol kicking in his grip as he dropped 2 more men. Alarms blared. More guards spilled out from the warehouse, their rifles cutting through the air with deadly precision. Marcus dove behind a stack of crates, reloading in a fluid motion. Then, a familiar voice. "Stone!" Captain Raymond Holt emerged, rifle in hand, his face twisted in rage. "You should have stayed out of this," Holt growled. Marcus stepped out of cover. "You should have aimed better." Holt snarled, raising his weapon, but Marcus was faster. A single, precise shot. Holt collapsed, his rein over. Inside the warehouse, Sheriff Lucas Grayson sat in his office, sipping coffee like it was any other day. When Marcus kicked the door open, Grayson didn't flinch. "Well," the sheriff muttered, setting his mug down. "I suppose it was only a matter of time." Marcus leveled his gun at him. "You ordered my brother's execution." Grayson sighed, almost bored. "It wasn't personal. Just business." Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Grayson smirked. "You think this ends with me?" Before Marcus could respond, the sheriff moved, not for a weapon, but for his phone. A video played. Security footage of Nathan, awake, alive, tied to a chair. Grayson grinned. "You kill me? He dies." Marcus's blood turned ice cold. A sudden, deadly twist. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Marcus's world narrowed to the glowing screen in Grayson's hand. Nathan, alive but barely, was bound to a chair in a dimly lit room. His head lolled to the side, blood smeared across his face. A masked man loomed behind him, a knife glinting in his grip. Grayson smirked, tossing the phone onto his desk. "Now, Stone, let's talk." Marcus kept his gun trained on the sheriff, but his mind raced. Nathan was alive. But for how long? Eleanor's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Marcus, what's happening?" He clicked his mic. "They have Nathan." Silence. Then, "Where?" Grayson leaned back in his chair. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" Marcus's grip tightened. "You're going to tell me," the sheriff chuckled. "Or what, you shoot me? That video feed isn't live, genius. If I die, your brother stays missing forever." Marcus's finger hovered over the trigger. He had killed before, countless times, but this wasn't war. This was personal. Still, killing Grayson wouldn't get Nathan back. Instead, he moved fast. Too fast for the sheriff to react. Crack. Marcus slammed his pistol across Grayson's jaw. The sheriff's head snapped to the side, blood pooling at the corner of his mouth. He groaned, struggling to sit up, until Marcus grabbed him by the collar, yanking him forward. "Where is he?" Marcus snarled. Grayson laughed even as blood stained his teeth. "You think beating me gets you answers?" Marcus smiled. It was cold, calculated, deadly. "I wasn't asking." Then he drove his fist into the sheriff's ribs again and again, striking with brutal precision. Grayson gasped, his arrogance cracking like bone. Still, he didn't break. But Marcus had other ways to make men talk. He pulled out his combat knife, pressing the cold steel against Grayson's throat. "Last chance," Marcus murmured. "Tell me or I carve the truth out of you." Grayson's breath hitched. Then, North Point. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. Elena's voice broke through the static. "That's an old dockyard outside town." Marcus shoved Grayson back against his chair. "Call them, tell them to stand down." Grayson wiped the blood from his mouth. "I don't think so." Marcus didn't hesitate. He slammed his knife into the sheriff's hand, pinning it to the desk. Grayson screamed, "Call them!" The sheriff's fingers fumbled for the phone. Marcus watched every move. If Grayson tried to warn them instead, he'd slit his throat before he finished the first word. The sheriff winced, dialing a number. A voice answered. "It's done," Grayson rasped. "Stand down." Silence. Then, the call ended. Marcus yanked his knife free, letting the sheriff collapse in pain. Then he turned to Devon and Elena. "We're going to North Point, and if Nathan was still alive, he was getting him back, no matter what." The drive to North Point dockyard was silent, fast, and deadly focused. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, his hands clenched into fists, his mind replaying the video of Nathan, beaten, barely conscious, but alive. He had come to Crescent Ridge for justice. Now, it was war. They approached the abandoned docks under the cover of night. The air smelled of salt and rusted metal. A single warehouse loomed over the water, its exterior battered by time. Elena parked behind a row of abandoned shipping containers. No visible guards. Devon checked his rifle. "Doesn't mean it's empty." Marcus didn't wait. He moved. Sticking to the shadows, they advanced. The large steel doors of the warehouse were slightly ajar, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights humming from within. Marcus slipped inside first. What he saw made his blood turn to ice. Nathan. Still tied to a chair, head hanging low, barely breathing. A masked man stood beside him, knife in hand. Not a guard. A butcher. Marcus acted on instinct. One clean shot. The man crumpled before he even saw it coming. Nathan groaned, weak but alive. Marcus was at his side in an instant, cutting the ropes. "I got you, brother," he whispered. Nathan's eyes flickered open, and then widened. "Marcus, behind you!" A sudden impact slammed into Marcus's ribs, sending him crashing into a metal rack. His gun skidded across the floor. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Marcus looked up, and his breath caught. Captain Raymond Holt, bloodied, bruised, but alive, and pointing a gun straight at his head. Marcus forced himself upright, his body aching. "You were dead," he growled. Holt smirked. "You should have made sure." He aimed at Marcus's chest. "Now you're gonna watch your brother die for real." Boom. A gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Holt staggered, a hole in his shoulder. Eleanor stood at the entrance, gun smoking. "You talk too much," Holt roared in pain, raising his gun, but Marcus was already on him. He tackled Holt, driving a brutal punch into his jaw. The force knocked them both into a pile of crates. Holt clawed for his gun, but Marcus grabbed his wrist and snapped it. A howl of pain. Then Marcus grabbed a nearby crowbar and swung. Crack. Holt collapsed, blood dripping from his mouth. He wasn't getting back up. Marcus stood over him, breathing heavily. His body screamed in pain, but it didn't matter. Nathan was safe. Devin rushed in, covering the exits. "We need to move now." Nathan, barely able to stand, gripped Marcus's shoulder. "It's over." Marcus looked down at Holt's motionless body. Then, at the USB drive Elena held, the proof of Grayson's corruption. "No," Marcus said, "it's just beginning." The war for justice wasn't over. But for the first time, Marcus knew they were going to win. 1 week later, Crescent Ridge was changing. Fast. With Sheriff Grayson exposed and Holt dead, the town's criminal empire was crumbling. The FBI and state police had descended, sweeping up dirty cops and shutting down the cartel-backed operations Grayson had overseen. But Marcus Stone knew better than to celebrate just yet, because Grayson was still out there. The warning. Marcus sat at the edge of Stone Creek Ranch, a beer in hand, watching the horizon. He should have felt relief, but his gut told him the fight wasn't over. And he was right. A black sedan rolled up the dirt road toward the house, its engine barely making a sound. Marcus set his beer down and reached for his Glock, slipping it under his shirt. Devin stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed. "We expecting company?" "No," Marcus muttered, "but we're about to have some." The sedan stopped a few yards away. The driver's side door opened, and a man in a tailored black suit stepped out. Not a cop, not a local. Someone else. Someone worse. The man adjusted his tie, scanning the ranch before his sharp eyes landed on Marcus. A small smirk tugged at his lips. "Mr. Stone." His voice was smooth. Too smooth. Marcus didn't move. "You got exactly 30 seconds to tell me who you are and why you're on my land." The man chuckled, slow and deliberate. "My name is Vincent Drake. I represent, let's call them, interested parties." Marcus's jaw tensed. "You work for Grayson." Drake smiled. "I work for people who want Grayson back in business." Devin stepped forward. "You picked the wrong house, pal." Drake ignored him. His gaze remained locked on Marcus. "Sheriff Grayson may have disappeared, but you and I both know men like him don't stay down for long," Drake continued. "The problem is, you and your friends made quite the mess, and my employers, they don't like messes." Marcus stayed silent, waiting, calculating. Drake tilted his head. "So, here's the deal. Walk away, leave town, let things return to normal, and in return, no one else gets hurt?" Marcus didn't blink. "And if I say no," Drake sighed, "then the people I work for will make sure that next time they don't miss." Silence stretched. Then Marcus smiled. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't amused. It was a warning. He took a step forward, standing inches from Drake. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "You tell your employers that I don't scare easy. You tell them that I'm not leaving. And you tell them this. If they come for me, they better kill me fast." Drake studied him for a moment, then chuckled. "Wrong answer." He turned back to his car, slipping inside like nothing had happened. As the sedan disappeared down the road, Marcus knew exactly what was coming next. The trap that night, Marcus met with Elena and Devin at a safe house outside town. "We just made the big leagues," Elena said, setting her laptop down. "Vincent Drake isn't just some thug. He's an enforcer for a private security firm that doesn't officially exist. They handle high-level problems for people with a lot of money." Devin whistled. "And let me guess, our dear friend Grayson had some powerful friends?" Elena nodded. "The feds are hunting Grayson, but he's got resources, connections. If he's still out there, that means someone is protecting him." Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Drake came with an ultimatum." Eleanor frowned. "And you told him to go to hell." Marcus nodded. "Which means we've got a small window before they hit back." Devin exhaled. "So what's the move?" Marcus checked his gun. "We don't wait. We set a trap." Showdown at Raven's Hollow. Marcus had spent his life hunting dangerous men. Now he was the bait. He and Devin positioned themselves at Raven's Hollow, an abandoned lodge deep in the woods, isolated, perfect for an ambush. Elena had leaked fake intel that Marcus was hiding out here. Now all they had to do was wait, and it didn't take long. At 2:13 a.m., headlights cut through the darkness. Marcus peered through his scope. 3 SUVs, armed men. And stepping out first? Vincent Drake. Devin clicked his safety off. Showtime. Marcus took aim. Wait for it. The mercenaries spread out, moving toward the lodge. Smart, tactical, but Marcus was smarter. Now. Boom! Devin fired first, taking out the closest man with a clean shot. Chaos erupted. Marcus dropped another before rolling into cover. Bullets shredded the wooden walls, but he and Devin had the high ground. Drake shouted orders, ducking behind an SUV. "Stone, let's talk." Marcus reloaded. "Pretty sure we tried that already." More gunfire, more bodies hitting the dirt. Then, silence. Marcus peered over his cover. Drake was gone. Marcus's gut twisted. Then he heard it. Footsteps behind him. He turned, fast. Too late. A fist slammed into his ribs, knocking the wind out of him. Vincent Drake stood over him, grinning. "Told you we'd be back." Marcus swung, but Drake dodged. Fast, precise, trained. He was no amateur. They grappled, each strike brutal. Then, Drake drew a knife, going for the kill. But Marcus caught his wrist, twisting hard. Snap. Drake howled in pain. Marcus didn't hesitate. One last punch, straight to the throat. Drake collapsed. Marcus stood over him, panting. "Told you to kill me fast." Drake spat blood, laughing. "You think this is over?" Marcus crouched, gripping his jaw. "No, but you just ran out of time." Sirens screamed in the distance. Eleanor's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Feds are inbound." Marcus grinned. "Then let's make sure they take out the trash." Drake tried to stand, but Marcus knocked him out cold. Game over. A new beginning. As the feds hauled Drake away, Marcus stood in the aftermath. Eleanor crossed her arms. "So, now what?" Marcus exhaled. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, he was winning. "Now," he smirked, "we clean up the rest." And just like that, Marcus Stone walked into the night, ready for the next fight. The loose ends. The dust had settled, but Marcus knew better than to relax. They had taken down Drake, exposed Holt and Grayson, and sent a message to whoever else was watching. But power doesn't just disappear, it shifts. And Marcus wasn't about to let someone new take the throne. Final cleanup. Back at the safe house, Marcus, Devin, and Eleanor went over the last remaining threats. "We took out their enforcer," Eleanor said, typing on her laptop. "But Grayson's still out there. And the cartel funding him, they won't let this go." Marcus exhaled. "Then we finish it before they regroup." Devin leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "Man, you really don't do taking a break, do you?" Marcus smirked. "Not when there's still work to do." Eleanor looked up from her screen. "I might have something. A possible location on Grayson." "It's not confirmed, but if we move fast..." Marcus didn't even let her finish. "Then let's move." Grayson's last stand. The last time Marcus had faced Sheriff Lucas Grayson, the man had been untouchable, a king ruling from the shadows. But now, he was a desperate man running out of places to hide. Marcus, Devin, and Eleanor pulled up to a rundown motel outside Crescent Ridge. Intel said Grayson had been seen there. No more resources, no more backup. Marcus loaded his pistol. Time to end this. The motel room door was unlocked. Too easy. Inside, a man sat in the dark, a pistol on the table. Lucas Grayson. He looked tired, hollow. Marcus entered, gun raised. "Game's over, Sheriff." Grayson chuckled, shaking his head. "You really think this ends with me?" Marcus stepped closer. "You're out of power, out of allies. You ran out of chances the second you pulled that trigger on my brother." Grayson sighed, picking up his gun. Devin moved to fire, but Marcus held up a hand. Grayson wasn't aiming at them. He turned the gun on himself. "I knew this was coming," Grayson muttered. "And I'd rather go on my own terms." Marcus clenched his jaw. "No, you don't get the easy way out," Grayson smirked. "Looks like I do." A single gunshot rang out, and just like that, it was over. The war never ends. Back at the ranch, Marcus sat on the porch, watching the sunrise. Devin stepped out, hands in his pockets. "So, now it's really over?" Marcus didn't respond, because he knew the truth. The war was never over. Grayson was dead. Drake was in custody. The town had been cleaned up, but Marcus had seen enough in his life to know that evil never really dies. It just finds new faces, new names, and when it did, he would be ready. The sun rose over Crescent Ridge, casting a golden glow over the town that had once felt like enemy territory. Marcus stood outside Crescent Ridge General Hospital, watching through the window as Nathan slept peacefully, for the first time since the nightmare began. The doctors said he would recover, though the scars, physical and otherwise, would remain. Thomas approached, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I know I messed up," he said, voice tight. "I put you in danger." Marcus turned to him, his expression unreadable. "But you did the right thing in the end," Marcus said. "That's what matters." A slow nod, a silent understanding. Later that day, the USB drive containing Grayson's crimes was delivered to federal agents. Elena broke the story wide open, exposing the corruption that had rotted Crescent Ridge for years. Arrests followed. Holt dead, Grayson on the run. Marcus knew it wasn't over. Men like Grayson didn't go down quietly. But when he came back, because he would, Marcus would be waiting. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus leaned against his truck, watching the town he had once called home. Devin stepped beside him, arms crossed. "So what now?" Marcus smirked. "Now, we clean up the rest." Devin chuckled. "And after that," Marcus exhaled, looking toward the open road. "I'll figure it out when I get there." But deep down, he already knew. Justice wasn't just something you won once. It was a war you fought every day. And Marcus Stone was just getting started. Subscribe now to see what happens next.